for startups. I want to appreciate the host, the Tech Hub. Thank you for putting together this program.
You're welcome.
You definitely rescue someone. Yes, you definitely amplifying someone's business. And I'm hoping that the perspectives that we are going to share tonight will shape our approach to the management of our enterprises. I wish to say, as long as people issues are not in check, are not in line, as long as we are not organized as far as people issues are concerned, there is no business model that can survive. There is no product that can survive in an environment that is characterized by chaos as far as people issues are concerned. So it is against this background that we are sharing perspectives. This is not a lecture. This is a conversation by professionals, by entrepreneurs on how best to approach issues from an HR perspective. So today I'm going to lay the foundation. I will address the end-to-end HR process, but mainly from a housekeeping angle. Then tomorrow I wish to address us from a more legal or legislative perspective. I understand we've got delegates from various parts of Africa and beyond. Possibly tomorrow you will forgive us, but I'm sure it will be good for comparable industrial relations also to know what is happening in other jurisdictions, just for purposes of benchmarking and enriching ourselves. So let me start by saying every organization under the sun is created to drive productivity. Whether it's a political party, whether it's a banking institution, whether it's a research organization, it's a manufacturing or a mining entity, whether it's a church, every institution, every organization, at the back of its mind, it must drive productivity. In other words, there must be outputs, there must be outcome, there must be evidence that we have got people employed in our organization, and the evidence is yield, is output, is productivity. And productivity is a function of the interaction of the factors of production. These are your land, your capital, your enterprise, your entrepreneurship, the ability to conceptualize, to start, to have an idea and to model it and to get people to run with it. That's being enterprising, and also human capital is a factor of production. So if you are to look at early literature, early business literature, the fourth factor of production, they would say labor. And I've got a problem with the word labor. Why? Because how you define it is how you treat it. So once you begin to reference people as labor, chances are high you begin to see them as tools, as machines to deliver an outcome and nothing beyond. And precisely for that reason, we have got enterprises that have struggled to stand and to be sustainable because of their approaches to, or their definition of human capital. So let's refer to people as human capital. The way you treat an asset, you maintain an asset, you take good stewardship of asset, is equally the same way you ought to take care of the asset called people. So what therefore is the issue as far as startups are concerned? My observation is that startups are usually very high on energy. Somebody is got some inspirational idea, they want to see things happening. Maybe they want to start a small scale mining entity, maybe it's a media, a publishing house. They are burning with an idea, but no idea, like I said at the very beginning, no idea will be sustainable as long as people issues are not sufficiently or systematically taken care of. So what is it that the entrepreneur or startup must be aware of as far as people issues or HR issues are concerned? Firstly, what we need to appreciate is that HR should not be a department, it must be a function. So in other words, HR competencies must exist or must be found seamlessly across the entire organizational structure. So in other words, if you are to go to the production department and there's a production supervisor, they need to have some semblance of people skills for them to drive the productive process. Equally, the marketing manager, equally the finance, whatever aspect of the business, we need seamless HR competencies. In other words, we must disabuse ourselves of the notion that HR is a department. HR, the department, yes, we need it. But what we need the most is not the department. What we need the most are the competencies, people-related competencies. So what people-related competencies do we need? The people-related competencies, firstly, we must understand the human resources management value chain. I would classify HR in general into 4 main pillars. The first pillar being, I call it human capital acquisition, or it's popularly referred to as recruitment and selection. So this pillar is a pillar which concerns itself with the sourcing of people into your organization. And as far as this pillar is concerned, this pillar, you can actually make it as an organization, or you can break it depending on the quality of the people that you have. I take lots of examples from sport. In sport, football teams in particular, when they say we are going on the market, when they say they are going on the market to go to acquire or to buy a player, they don't just buy anyone. They buy somebody. They buy somebody whose capabilities would drive the team forward. Equally, that is the mindset that you'd want entrepreneurs to embrace. I'm seeing a question, comment, which says, apologies, I can't hear a thing from my end. Maybe just to confirm, can you hear me clearly, Simba?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me clearly? Okay, I'm sure the member concerned possibly can adjust their settings, their mics and stuff like that. Okay, so the human capital acquisition pillar, what do we need to know? When we recruit, we must recruit the right people. What determines the right people is 2 main things. Right people must be right technically. In other words, if you want a finance manager must be able to understand, appreciate finances, the international financial reporting standards, and anything that constitutes the finance function. So technical competency is one variable that we look for, but technical competency is not enough. You also need the other variable that is called culture fit. Culture fit now is the character and behavior of the people in your organization. So it is very possible to have a technically competent employee who falls short as far as character or fit is concerned. I'll give examples. Sorry, I keep using sport examples. There's this player by the name of Mario Balotelli, super technically competent, but Super Mario falls short as far as character and behavior is concerned. And ultimately, you can't then say he's the best fit for a particular team. So what I'm trying to say to entrepreneurs right now is, when you recruit, you must be alive to 2 main things. You must be alive to technical competencies. And technical competencies reside on a person's CV, and you can test them using interviews, you can test them using other selection tools. But character issues now are a bit tricky. An interview may not be enough for you to be able to decipher somebody's character, somebody's disposition, and which is why recruiters for startups, entrepreneurs, you also need to know that there is a selection tool that is called reference checks. Reference checks are, these are background checks that you do on a particular employee. You can contact where they are coming from, where they've worked before, and ascertain how their character was like, how their levels of cooperation were like, whether they were a team player, and sort of. So startups, entrepreneurs must not be too busy or too
Sorry,
fast.
Chris,
Yes.
can I interject? Can I ask a question? Is
Yes,
that
sure.
okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Um, you're speaking about character and hiring. My question is around culture. How does the startup create a culture that they then want to go forward with? What shapes that culture that they intend to shape the business within? Especially if you're a
Okay.
new startup with an idea, yeah, how do you shape that culture?
Okay. Thank you, Simba. Firstly, when we talk of culture, culture is intentional. Culture is deliberate. So, in other words, an organization must outline its vision, it must outline its mission, but equally, it must also outline its core values. Core values are, in my experience dealing with organizations, they appear like things that are used to beautify reception areas. So there is always a framed flyer that is written core values, and usually it begins there and it ends there. So what I'm trying to say is, corporate values or core values are not supposed to be recited or to be remembered. They are supposed to be lived. So in other words, what an entrepreneur must say is, they, as part of their strategic planning, is they plan for market penetration, is they plan for production, is they plan for human resources and other functions, they must also plan for corporate culture. In other words, an organization needs a culture blueprint. So Simba, if I'm to come to your organization today and ask for your strategic plan, one of the things that I'm going to do is to see whether in your strategic plan you are also deliberate about the culture that you want to see obtaining in your entity. So culture is not natural. Culture is defined the same way you define to say, this is the type of candle that you want to manufacture, this is the type of perfume that you want to manufacture, is equally the same way that you must define the culture that you want to see. So you find people saying we believe in cooperation, and we must be able to say, are we being cooperative, or how does cooperation manifest, or how should it manifest in our organization, so that when it ceases to manifest or to subsist, we are able to point down to issues and say, employees so and so, you are falling short in this dimension, and this dimension is very pertinent to our culture. So in summary, Simba, I'm trying to say, culture, you define it, you spell it out, don't leave it to chance. As you do your strategic planning, you must also come up with a strategy for corporate culture. I'm not too sure if you are happy with
I'm
this.
happy. There's the famous quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Not only for breakfast, for lunch and for dinner as well.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
what it simply means is that great ideas sometimes fail to see the light of day, not because they were not great, they were taken away by they were eaten by culture. Culture is how we do things. So if you look at Africa in particular, I'm aware of organizations, I'm aware of countries, I'm aware of institutions whose strategies are very correct. So they may not necessarily need to go and come up with new strategic priorities. What they need to do is to go and shape themselves up as far as culture is concerned. So blueprint after blueprints, Africa is known for blueprints. Blueprints will keep coming. But for as long as the culture is not correct, we may not find or come to terms with strategic excellence in our respective organizations.
It's true.
Yes, thank you so much. So I was talking about recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Let me emphasize this, Simba. No amount of training can compensate for a wrong recruitment. And this is what must be at the back of the mind of an entrepreneur. If you get it wrong, don't hope for miracles. I mean, no amount of anointing oil, no amount of, you know what, if you get it wrong at recruitment, it may send the entire ship off the rails, and this has to be avoided. So let me use this example. Why do people date for months, for years before they get married? They want to get to know each other. So they want quality time before they make a commitment. But I'm surprised with entrepreneurs, in 20 minutes, they can make a commitment of somebody who is supposed to spend 10 years in their organization. I think that's an area where we may need to refocus our approaches and efforts. And entrepreneurs and startups must know that an interview is not the only selection tool. So in other words, there are things that an interview can do, and there are things that an interview cannot do. Let's give an example. If you are recruiting a data capture clerk for your microfinance institution or for your bank, why do you spend 45 minutes talking to a data capture clerk? Give them the computer, give them the data, then we know you are spot on as far as technical competence is concerned. So I'm trying to emphasize the point to say startups, entrepreneurs must be alive to the variety of selection tools that are available for particular roles. So there are times where you need a psychometric test to assess certain aptitudes. There are times where you need an interview. There are times where you need to include reference checks as part or a practical test. So I would say, therefore, startups need to be alive to the governance of recruitment. So you may actually need a basket of selection tools, and possibly you say the interview is constituting 40%, a reference check is constituting 20%, a practical test maybe is constituting 30%, and ultimately your selection is scientifically arrived at and determined, because it's very possible to have somebody who speaks flowery, somebody who speaks beautifully, and still, in fact, somebody can be very eloquent and they may not be at the level of proficiency that matches their eloquence. And so this pillar of human resources is very important. You are as credible, you are as sustainable as the quality of the people that you have. So in summary, as far as this pillar is concerned, I want to say to entrepreneurs listening tonight that you need quality instruments and you need quality time, the same quality time that you spend dating your husband or your wife before marrying them is also the same amount of or quality time that you need before you ultimately make a selection decision. Otherwise, no amount of training can compensate for a bad recruitment.
But then,
Yes, so
Can I just add? What happens in the event? Because startups they don't have enough cash and they're trying to grow quickly. So I think they feel the pressure to achieve whatever targets that they're chasing. Ipapo. So maybe that's why they hire quickly.
Okay, and that's the lesson that we and the discipline that we need to have if we are to have sustainable institutions that are built to last. The first thing is when you've done your organizational design, when you have done your structuring of your organization, the next thing that you must do is job competence mapping. So in other words, if you, let's say you are starting a small perfumery, you want to be manufacturing perfumes, and maybe you want to start with 3 people, you want to start with okay, let's say your organization has got 5 people, you are the director, you have got the production supervisor, you have got 2 production people, and you have got a marketing, a sales rep, and you have got your accounts clerk to do your sales and your receipting. For every position that you have, you must do. Oh, sorry, there's some feedback. For every position that you have, you must do job competency profiling. In other words, you must answer a fundamental question to say, what type of a person will excel in this role? So before you see them physically, you must see them imaginatively on paper. Before you see your production supervisor in the interview room, you should be able to visualize them in terms of competency, in terms of character, in terms of disposition, in terms of other various abilities as defined by your job competence profile. So there is no excuse, Simba, for wanting to recruit somebody in 15 minutes before you've done the relevant due diligence. And we've got interesting stories in Africa where it gets discovered after so many years that the so-called chief operating officer that we thought was degraded is actually not degraded. But what comes first is not the discovery of fake qualifications. What comes first is the discovering of unsatisfactory performance, which then prompts people to want to do what they were supposed to do before they recruited. So I'm trying to say to startups, to every entrepreneur, don't rush as far as recruitment is concerned. Look at every position from a perspective of technical competencies, and also look at every position from a perspective of character and behavior. That should then inform your selection, the type of questions that you ask, the type of other instruments that you may want to deploy, especially to ascertain issues to do with character, behavior, and disposition. All right. Okay, so that's the first pillar of human resources, and tomorrow I will, as we talk labor legislation that is specific to our jurisdiction, I will also then address issues to avoid as far as recruitment advertising is concerned. I see plenty of illegal adverts. It takes one day, somebody who put an employer to task, especially as far as recruitment discrimination in adverts is concerned. Anyway, that's the business for tomorrow. Now let me move more on to the second pillar of human resources. The second pillar in human resources management is the pillar to do with maintenance and integration. Now that you have recruited people, you must integrate them so that they develop the DNA of your organization. It is possible to recruit somebody from Mbare and from Magaba, and you want them to work in your lower density offices, banking institution, and they keep exhibiting a Magaba character in your environment. That is supposed to be taken care of by integration and maintenance. So maintenance and integration is the pillar where we find a number of sub HR processes. Let me start by addressing the first one, being onboarding. Onboarding, basically, this is, okay, we used to call it induction. Now let's try to call it onboarding. Onboarding is a lifelong process. What I've seen as a point of weakness in so many organizations is a microwave approach to induction or onboarding. I've seen people practically coming, new employees coming into an organization, they are introduced to the HODs, they are taken to the workers' committee chairperson, they are taken to the canteen, and they're taken to the toilet. And before you know it, in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, the interview is done. That approach is naturally fatal. That approach is inherently unsustainable. An employee who is not sufficiently inducted is like an injured player. And what I like from sport is that if Marcus Rashford is injured, Manchester United does not field him in the team to play. Why? Because he is not yet fit. So I fear that entrepreneurs are deploying unfit employees to drive their productivity agenda, and certainly and surely it's a recipe to be lowly productive and very highly unsustainable. So approaches to onboarding, we need more quality time to ensure that the person is taken through the corporate culture, the history of the organization. In other advanced HR practices, you even appoint an onboarding body, somebody who is also a member of the organization, possibly a colleague, an employee, who makes sure that they get acquainted to the other not so formal aspects of the business, so that the employee is fast-tracked as far as their settling in is concerned. This business of 10-minute induction is not helping organizations, is not helping employees as well to settle quickly, to become highly proficient in whatever they do. In the banking sector, they say KYC, know your customer. And I want to say to entrepreneurs and managers, let's also do KYE. KYE is know your employee. Don't just know the person who has reported for duty that you see as a tool for productivity. What you need is to know the employee a bit in detailed, get to know where they come from, get to know how they grew up, get to know what makes, get to know almost every material aspect of the employee. So I think for today, okay, Simba, confirm again. Our link, do we still have the time?
We've got 2 minutes left, so you can wrap up, and then we'll just restart the link when it cuts, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay, that's fine.
Use another.
So,
okay,
that's fine. So, in summary, I'm saying, having recruited people, you also want them settled quickly to drive productivity. And that's a function of a robust onboarding program, a robust induction program. So for this to happen, entrepreneurs and startups must know that HR is driven from a perspective of policy. So no organization is too small not to have a recruitment policy. No organization is too small not to have an onboarding policy. Being small is not a license to cut corners, and that's the death of many startups. We are always cutting corners. We are always wanting things done quickly and completed quickly, and obviously we know what it does to to sustainability of our entities. So that's the first aspect of the second pillar, maintenance and integration, which is onboarding. Other aspects that you would find that are very pertinent are housekeeping issues. Housekeeping issues are defined or determined by the company code of conduct. So in our jurisdictions, every startup must know that there is a need to come up with an organizational code of conduct. But